Welcome back to Monday for your weekly update when it comes to the power rankings. And I know we've had a lot of new subscribers joining the channel. So if you're one of those new subscribers, welcome aboard. And this is something I do every week. It's my own power rankings. I have a formula that I do after the games that take place every night, figure out what teams need to move up, which teams move down based on those results. And then I compile it all here and share with you what I've come up with for the power rankings. So this is already week 19. Which is crazy to think about. We're 19 weeks into the 2024-25 OHL season. The playoffs just about 2 months away, believe it or not. Man, time is flying, but let's get into it. Here are the power rankings for this week. Starting off with number 20, it's the Owen Sound Attack. They dropped 2 spots this week. Now, Owen Sound, they're young, they're rebuilding. They went 1-2 last week, so not too bad. They played well against Barrie in a 3-2 loss, and then their win over Sarnia came in a shootout. And Pierce Bowie, what a game for him. Had his first career OHL hat trick. A bit of a breakout for him. All 3 goals highlight material there. So it's a good sign for this team going forward. I think Owen Sound should be a much improved team next season. But if you're an Attack fan, you got to be encouraged by what some of these younger guys are doing, like Pierce Bowie. Coming up this week, they're home to the Erie Otters on Wednesday. Saturday, they host Ottawa. And then Sunday, they take on the Brampton Steelheads. Number 19, I have the Ottawa 67s. They're up 1 spot this week. Now, it was great to see Ottawa snap that 9-game losing streak. They did it with a 5-4 win at home against the Kingston Frontenacs, who've been playing really well of late. Then followed it up with a 7-2 loss to the Saginaw Spirit. So I do move them up 1 spot. They are holding on to that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference by 1 point over the North Bay Battalion. But for Ottawa, 1-8-1 is their record over the last 10 games. They need to improve if this team is going to make the playoffs this year. This week, they're on the road. They're in Barrie on Thursday. Not an easy matchup. Saturday, they visit the Owen Sound Attack, and then Sunday, they will be in Guelph. At number 18, I have the Peterborough Petes. They're up 1 position this week, and for Peterborough, they started the week with an 8-6 win at home against the Saginaw Spirit, which most of those games, that's the most goals they've put up in one game all season, so quite remarkable there for the Petes. But then the Maroon and White followed it up with a 6-3 loss to Oshawa. But this is a team that's finding ways to score, unlike we did at the start of the regular season. So you have to take the positives with this team. They're still about 9 points out of a playoff spot. Playoffs seem very unlikely for the Peterborough Petes, but still, you got to take the positives when they come about. So putting up 8 goals, not too shabby there for the Petes. Now this week, just 3 games rather. They're home to Brampton on Thursday. Friday, they visit the Brampton Steelheads. And then they're home to Oshawa on Saturday. So a very challenging 3-3 coming up here for the Peterborough Petes. At number 17, I have the Sioux Greyhounds. No change from last week. It was an okay week for Sault Ste. Marie. They were 1-1, a win over Flint, and then a loss to the London Knights. But the highlight of the week has to be Nolan Lalonde, who had the goalie goal. It's the first in Greyhounds history and the second goalie goal this season after Carter George had the goal for the Owen Sound Attack. So George and Lalonde lead the OHL goaltenders in goal scoring this year. Not too bad. Now, coming up Wednesday, they're home to the Kitchener Rangers. Friday, they host the Brantford Bulldogs. And then on Sunday, the Greyhounds travel to Saginaw. At number 16, it's the North Bay Battalion. No change from last week either. They were 1-1. They had a loss to London and then came from behind to defeat the Sudbury Wolves. For Jack Lisson, he looked pretty comfortable in net in that win against the Sudbury Wolves, making 41 saves for his second win of the season. Now has a .908 save percentage in 4 games of work, so not too bad here for Lisson. North Bay, 1 point out of that playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, and they're 4-6 over the last 10 games, so they've been gaining ground here on Ottawa. I do feel that North Bay has a strong chance to get that 8th playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, but man, oh man, it's going to be a battle right down to the finish for that final playoff spot. Coming up this week for the Battalion, they're home to Brantford on Thursday. Friday, they're in Sudbury. And then on Sunday, they're home to the Niagara Ice Dogs. At number 15, I have the Guelph Storm. No change for them. The Storm, another team that had a 1-1 record last week. They had a loss to Brantford and then a very impressive 6-1 win over the Oshawa Generals on the road. Charlie Paquette, a great game there against Oshawa. 3 goals and 1 assist. And you do need this from your veteran players to stand up and take the lead. And that's what Charlie Paquette did in this hockey game because they have a gap to fill with the Greyhounds in that final playoff spot in the Western Conference. And they have 2 games coming up this week. Friday, they host the Sarnia Sting, and then on Sunday, they're home to Ottawa. At number 14, I have the Saginaw Spirit. They fell one position this week, and it was a challenging road trip through the East Division for Saginaw. They went 1-1-1, 3 out of possible 6 points. But this team, they have no problems finding the back of the net. 198 goals for, which is third most in the OHL, but they're 169 goals against. That's the 8th most in the Ontario Hockey League, so not a great balance there for goals for, goals against. The offense, of course, it starts with Michael Misa, 83 points, leads the OHL in scoring. And this week, they have some tough contests. First, it's Thursday at home to Kingston. Saturday, they're home to Kitchener. And then Sunday, they're home to Sault Ste. Marie. At number 13, I have the Brampton Steelheads. They dropped 3 positions this week. I was very surprised to see Brampton go 0-2-1 last week. They played a very tight game against the Bay Colts on the road at the Saddlin Arena. They gave up the tying goal with 1.7 seconds left in the hockey game before losing in overtime. And then losses in Flint and Windsor. So if you're a Steelheads fan, I don't think it's time to panic. I think this is a Brampton team that will have a strong finish to the second half. But that top spot in the division, it's becoming less likely. They're now 14 points behind the Bay Colts for first in the Central Division. So a lot of work here if this team even wants to compete for home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Now, coming up this week, they're on the road Thursday in Peterborough. They're home to Peterborough Friday. And then on Sunday, they travel up north to face the Owen Sound Attack. At number 12, the Flint Firebirds, up 2 positions this week. First off, those Flint Tropics jerseys, beautiful. I love the teal that they use. And of course, it's a nod to the movie that was based on the Flint Tropics with Will Ferrell. So I do like the look of that jersey. It's too bad it was just a one-off. But man, wouldn't that be a fun third jersey to sport around the Ontario Hockey League, that teal. But on the ice, the Firebirds, they had a 1-1 record, a loss in the Sioux, and then a pretty big win over Brampton. And maybe we can credit those Flint Tropics jerseys for that victory. Now, coming up this week, they will be in Windsor on Thursday. Friday, they host Kitchener. And then Saturday, they're home to the Kingston Frontenacs. So 3 very tough games coming up this week for Flint. At number 11, I have the Sudbury Wolves. They dropped 2 positions this week. And something just appears off with the Sudbury Wolves right now. 0-2 is their record last week. And their losing streak, now 5 games. We saw the Bay Colts overcome a 5-game losing streak. So we'll see what the Sudbury Wolves are able to do here. But despite those losses, Henry Muse, points in 6 of his 7 games since being traded from the Ottawa 67s. He has a goal and 9 assists, so 10 points in those 8 games. So not too bad there from Henry Muse. Coming up this week, just 2 games. They're home to North Bay on Friday, and then they're home to Brantford on Sunday. At number 10, I have the Niagara Ice Dogs. They're up 2 positions this week. The Ice Dogs, 1-1-1 was the record. Tough loss in Brantford. They fell short in a shootout to Erie before pulling off the comeback win yesterday against the Otters on home ice. Now, it's a given that Niagara will make the playoffs. I believe they're going to be, they should clinch a playoff spot this year, unless they lose the rest of their games from here on out, but I don't see that happening. But it seems like they're going to go as far as Owen Flores can carry them. Flores has 23 of Niagara's 27 wins this season, and he made 43 saves for the victory yesterday against the Otters. So right now, Niagara, they have a goal differential of +1, which is kind of concerning, but they're currently 2 points out of first in the Central Division, so they're doing something right, but if they want to keep pace with the Bay Colts, they really need to start keeping pucks out of the net, and maybe Flores needs to rest up a little bit. You don't want to have a tired goaltender going into the playoffs, but time will tell. Coming up this week, they're on the road for 2. They're in Barrie on Saturday, so there's a huge Central Division matchup, and then on Sunday, they visit the North Bay Battalion. At number 9, the Sarnia Sting dropped 1 position this week, and it was not the best of weeks for the Sarnia Sting. They lost both of their games against Windsor and Owen Sound, but they did go into extra time in both of those losses. They earned points, so 2 out of a possible 4 points. The Sting riding a 4-game point streak, so there's some positives to take away. Their record over the last 10 games now stands at 5-3-1-1, and they're 7 points back as Saginaw for 4th in the West. So home ice, still not out of the equation here for Sarnia if they can keep getting points here. Coming up Friday, they're in Guelph. Saturday, they're home to Erie. And then on Sunday, they host the Kingston Frontenacs. So that Kingston game, I think, is going to be a good measuring stick for what the Sarnia Sting team is capable of. At number 8, I have the Bay Colts. They're up 3 positions this week. And the Colts, they had some big wins last week. They went 3-0, extending their winning streak to 5 games. And they had wins at home against Brampton and Brantford. Those were huge. And they also forced overtime with 1.7 seconds left in the game against the Steelheads and snapped Brantford's 8-game winning streak. So some big wins there. And Riley Patterson, he's been playing lights out of late for the Barrie Colts. 6 points over his last 4 games. And you have to give him credit for their turnaround after having that 5-game losing streak. I really like the play of Riley Patterson. And really, that line of him, Bodwin, and Jelsma has been a great number 2 right behind Wakely, Van Steensel, and Romani. So Barrie right now, first in the Eastern Conference, but it's not a comfortable lead at the top. 2 points up on Oshawa and Niagara, and then 3 points up on Kingston, and then 4 points on Brantford. So it's very tough within the top 5 of the Eastern Conference standings. Now, coming up this week for Barrie, they're home to Ottawa on Thursday. They have a huge matchup Friday in Oshawa, and then they're home to Niagara on Saturday. So it's a very tough 3-3 here coming up for the Barrie Colts. And that game Thursday could be a bit of a trap game considering Ottawa just 1 win over their last 10 games. They could overlook them. And if that's the case, that's when a team can burn you. So we'll see what Marty Williamson can do to keep this team focused as they try to extend that winning streak. At number 7, I have the Erie Otters. They dropped 2 positions this week, and holding leads were an issue for them. They needed a shootout to defeat Niagara on home ice after they had a 1-goal lead disappear late in the third, and then losses to Kitchener and Niagara, where both teams came back to win that one. So I know not having a player like Matthew Schaefer in the lineup hurts, but I was kind of expecting more from this Erie Otters team coming into this season, and right now, they're 4-6 over their last 10 games. I know there's been some stuff going on behind the scenes with Stan Butler. I'll get to that in a news video later today, but still, I thought this Erie team would challenge for top spot in the Midwest, but right now, just trying to challenge for 4th in the Western Conference right now. They are on the road this week. Wednesday, they're in Owen Sound. Friday, they're in London. And then Saturday, they visit the Sarnia Sting. At number 6, I have the Brantford Bulldogs. They are up 1 position this week. For Brantford, they had a 2-1 record last week. It started with wins over Niagara and Guelph, but then they kind of ran out of steam in the game against the Barrie Colts. Nick Lardis, though, first player to hit 40 goals on the season. He scored twice in that game against the Barrie Colts. And now 41 goals in 44 games, which is outstanding from Nick Lardis. Now Brantford, they are in the thick of it in the East Division. 2 points behind Oshawa for first in the division. 1 point behind Kingston for second. It's just so tight right now in the East. Coming up Thursday, they will be in North Bay. Friday in Sault Ste. Marie. And then Sunday in Sudbury, a Northern Ontario road trip, which is never easy, but we'll see what the Bulldogs are capable of. At number 5, I have the Kingston Frontenacs. They fell 2 positions this week. Kingston, they had a 2-1 record with wins at home against Ottawa and Saginaw, where they posted 7 goals in both of those games. Although the win against Saginaw was in a shootout, I was really surprised, though, how they lost on the road Saturday afternoon to Ottawa, where they gave up the game-winning goal late in the third period. Now, obviously, you can't win them all, and the Frontenacs, they're still in the middle of it for the race for top spot in the East Division. It's intense. 1 point behind Oshawa, and then, of course, Brantford right behind them. So that's going to be a fun race to follow as the season goes on. For Kingston, they're on the road this week. It starts Thursday in Saginaw. Saturday, they're in Flint. And then Sunday, they're in Sarnia. At number 4, the Windsor Spitfires. No change for them from last week. This is now 3 weeks in a row. Windsor has been 4th in the power ranking. They were 2-0 last week. So one team did pass them to keep them out of the top 3 because, let's face it, the top teams right now in the OHL, all deserving of some recognition, and Windsor's one of them. Health was an issue the previous week with illness going through the room, but things seem to be getting back on track for Windsor. Tanais Mathurin, though, he had a great stretch of games last week. 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. So the former North Bay Battalion getting the job done on the blue line for the Windsor Spitfires. Now coming up for Windsor, home to Flint on Thursday, and then home to London on Sunday. That's going to be a big game down at the WFCU Center. At number 3, the Kitchener Rangers. They're up 3 positions this week. What a big win to start the week at home against the London Knights. You could just tell there was a weight taken off this team as they had, it was quite a while since we last saw the Kitchener Rangers earn a victory against the London Knights. But after that, they won back-to-back games against Owen Sound and Erie. They needed a comeback to defeat the Otters, but the Kitchener Rangers looking pretty good last week. Jack Pridham, though, he has been steady. A goal in all 3 games last week. He's been fun to follow for the Kitchener Rangers. Now, coming up this week, it's a 3-game road trip for Kitchener. It starts Wednesday in Sault Ste. Marie. Friday, they're in Flint. And then Saturday, they will be in Saginaw. At number 2, I have the Oshawa Generals. No change from last week. For Oshawa, though, I had them in first in the power rankings for some of the week following London's loss in Kitchener because I felt, London lost on the road there. They could follow to number 1, so I put Oshawa there because Oshawa has been a team playing really well of late, but I couldn't keep them there after their 6-1 loss at home to the Guelph Storm. The Storm, of course, 9th in the Western Conference, so I settled, okay, we're going to put Oshawa on second, see how they bounce back going forward. Because the Generals, they had a 1-1 record. They have a 1-point lead right now in the East Division over Kingston and 2 points over Brantford. Right now, if you're in one of those 3 teams, so Oshawa included, you cannot afford to lose many games like that against a team like the Guelph Storm. So that race for first place is going to go right down to the wire. Coming up for Oshawa, Friday, they're home to Barrie, so that's a huge game. And then Saturday, they visit the Peterborough Petes. So at number 1, that leaves us with the London Knights. So no change from last week. The week did get off to a slow start with that 5-2 loss on the road in Kitchener, but then they swept in the northern road trip through North Bay, Sudbury, and Sault Ste. Marie. Easton Cowan and Denver Barkey both kept out of the lineup in that final game against the Greyhounds, but that didn't seem to faze the London Knights because this team does have that next man up mentality, and they can win in so many different ways. So yes, they lost to start the week to Kitchener, but then they pulled off 3 straight wins. So I had to put them back in that number 1 spot for the power rankings. So coming up this week, just 2 games. They're home to the Erie Otters on Friday, and then a big matchup Sunday down in Windsor. Maybe that one will decide who's number 1 in the power rankings for next week. We'll have to wait and see. But that one should be a fun game. It's always a great rivalry night when it's the Knights and the Spitfires, and that next chapter will be on Sunday. So that's how I see it from the booth. Let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on the power rankings. What teams are surprising you right now? And what are you looking forward to most with the week ahead? Thank you very much for all your support. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Talk to you soon.